We have a burning platform for change. Now, enter into the next era of the internet. I think we're getting another kick at the can. And it started with Bitcoin. And I confess to be a late awakener on this. It was just a little over 2.5 years ago, I started thinking, whoa, could this be the real deal? Could this be this thing that we've been looking for? And of course, the underlying technology of Bitcoin enables peer-to-peer exchange, not just of information, but of value. And that doesn't mean that this dream of a true peer-to-peer society and of prosperity can be created, but we're getting another kick at the can. And that's why what you're doing is so important. This is not just about creating some cool businesses. To me, this is dealing with a world that's too unprosperous, it's too unjust, it's too unsustainable, and it's too conflicted. And we now have an opportunity to do something about that. Well, the economists, bless their hearts, got involved with the cover story last week. I'm not sure they totally nailed it, but we're moving the ball forward here. And of course, I'm hopeful the ball will seriously get moved forward in April when this book comes out. By the way, if you want to get this book, pre-order it. The very best way to do it is in massive volume. Christmas is coming soon. No, but just to really confuse things, along with the publisher, they've changed the name of the book. So a week from now, it won't be this on Amazon. It'll be called Blockchain Revolution, which, what the heck? Trust protocol is kind of cool. I thought it was a riff off the God protocol from Nick Szabo's article of very long ago. But it will be called Blockchain Revolution. Now, of course, there's a huge battle that's shaping up, right? Will the financial services industry, this Rube Goldbergian industry, you tap something in Starbucks and then these bits flow through 7 computer systems, some of them being 1970s mainframes, and finally, 2 or 3 days later, the thing gets settled. There's an obvious opportunity in R3. It's a coalition of 22 banks. They want to use this not to disrupt financial services, but to eliminate all of that, so we're all looking at the same ledger, and there is no settlement. The transaction occurs, and it's done. The settlement is 0, milliseconds, as opposed to 3 days. And these are all the things that the banks do. Now, we went through and dissected all of these in the book. Each of these is a whole story, talking about both the opportunity to disintermediate traditional financial services institutions, because that's what they do. They move money, they store money, they exchange money, they account for value, and so on. But also how the industry could use this to transform itself. So let me try and pull this together. How long do I have, by the way? I'm sorry. Okay. What does all this mean? Well, I think this guy holds the key to everything. Ronald Coase, Nobel Prize winning economist. And 80 years ago, he never wrote about the internet, and he died before you guys really came on the scene. But 80 years ago, he wrote a Nobel Prize winning paper where he asked a deceptively simple question. He said, why does the firm exist? If Adam Smith is right, the open market's the best mechanism to determine how goods and information and money and people are allocated in an economy, why aren't we all independent contractors? Why do we have firms? And he said the answer is, and he won a Nobel Prize for saying this, the answer is transaction costs. And he defined that broadly. The cost of search, he said 80 years ago. The cost of finding all the right information in an open economy, the right people to do something, totally prohibitive, so we bring it inside the boundaries of a corporation, where we have stuff like filing cabinets to get information, org charts to find people. And the big industrialists understood this. So Henry Ford had within the boundaries of the Ford Motor Company a power plant, steel mill, shipping company, glass factory. Why? because the cost of transactions in an open market were greater than the cost of doing things inside the boundaries of Ford. So back in the day, in 1990, we started calling this, saying that the boundaries of corporations are becoming more porous. And then with the internet, some vertically integrated companies began to unbundle into networks. Cisco figured this out, and a network business model. This is a 15-year-old diagram of the Cisco business ecosystem. Cisco figured this out, and a network business model conferred competitive advantage because the tonic of the market got brought to bear on all these different parts of the organization. Now, with the internet initially moving from a platform for the presentation of content with HTML to becoming more a computational platform with XML and SOAP and UDDI and all this sort of lingua franca for distributed computing. Now, with blockchain technologies, the opportunity exists to drop those transaction costs so much that we can actually start to envisage radical new models of how we orchestrate capability in society to innovate, to create goods and services, and to engage with the rest of the world. So everyone's thinking, well, a big solution to the problem of social inequality is redistribution of wealth. Well, we're probably going to have to do some of that. But what if we had a different approach, which was not redistribution, it was distribution? What if we started enabling millions and tens of millions and maybe hundreds of millions of people around the world to participate in the creation of companies? They might only have $10 to contribute, but they end up being owners of a highly distributed and networked type enterprise. Well, this is pretty exciting, and it holds the key to a lot of problems. So I don't have time to tell that. Too bad. It's a great story. So the old is Uber. I love the disruptive economy. I love it. I was at a thing yesterday, and somebody said Uber is a sharing economy company, and I'm like, what? Uber's a $45 billion corporation that's a service aggregator, and I get my view of sharing from preschoolers. You ask a 3-year-old, if I give you one of my cookies, is that sharing? The kid, yeah, that's sharing. If I give you a cookie, but you have to give me some money, is that sharing? No, that's mean. So what is blockchain Uber? Call it super Uber, or Suber, as we said in the book. What does that look like? Well, I'm sure you all know, we actually, with some help from Joan, the consensus folks, we detailed this quite a bit in the book. And how does this actually work? And how do transactions flow, and what kind of technology enables this to occur? But it's not a $45 billion corporation, it's a distributed app. This is all about the creators of value receiving the value that they create. I was with Imogen Heap at her, it's actually her son Scout's one-year birthday party a couple of nights ago in a barn somewhere outside of London. And I mean, the musicians have been getting screwed for years. Originally with the labels, they got a small piece of the value, and then the internet made it worse because it brought these new intermediaries in like Apple and Spotify that took more of the value, and the poor musicians are at the end of the food chain getting this paltry little piece. Well, what if we had a music industry that was kind of like a distributed app, and you post your music up there, and you got you specifying the rights, you want to listen to it for free, cool, no problem. You want to remix it, well, here's a smart contract that governs that. You want to put it into a movie, you got a smart contract here, and every time it plays, you get a little royalty stream. This holds the possibility for a 21st century music industry where finally musicians can make a living creating their music. How exciting is that? Old Airbnb, the new is B Airbnb, blockchain Airbnb. It's a distributed app. And yeah, well, how about Airbnb covers insurance? Okay. for less than 1% of the total cost. We can build in insurance and marketing and all the rest. And rather than Airbnb taking 15 or 20% off the top. Oh, and if you're international, losing another 8% through foreign exchange stuff. Anytime Western Union gets involved, bad things are going to happen. So, well, now that we're on that, how about Annalee Domingo? It's a great story in the book. Filipino nanny who used to get on a bus for 2 hours every month to go pay her remittances. Western Union would take roughly 10% of her $200, and it takes 3 to 6 days to get there. Now, using Abra, it happens in a millisecond, and it costs her like 0.5%. So this is pretty cool. How about, do you know that 70% of land in the world, if you own a little piece of land somewhere and you have a piece of paper, that's threatened? Because you can have a little piece of paper saying, I own this little house in Honduras, and some dictator comes in and says, no, you don't. The central computer system says my friends own it. Well, so using Factum, now we're putting land registries on the blockchain. Good luck, dictator. If any of you, by the way, are tyrants or dictators, I would seriously recommend some career planning on that. The old surveillance society, the new, that's a weird picture. Is that my body? Anyway, the weird is the new is a distributed avatar. Right now there's the virtual you, there's the virtual Joe. But Joe doesn't own that. It's owned by these big data frackers. What if you owned the virtual you? It was your identity in a black box, and it went around and it disclosed just whatever it needed to do a transaction. And you pay for something, and there's no data trail that you paid for it. Plus, you not only get to protect your privacy, you get to collect this data. Maybe you decide you want to monetize it. So I wanted to end just with a thought about you and how this meeting, I think, fits in. We have a lot of problems in the world. And this is pollution flows in the world. You think pollution is a local problem? It's not. Most of these problems are not getting better. So why is that? Are they just too hard to solve? Maybe our model's wrong. What's our model? Anyone hear of Bretton Woods? 1944, the winners of the World War, 44 countries got together and they created the World Bank and the IMF. A year later, a bigger group created the UN. A year later, the UNESCO, and then the GATT, and the WTO, and the G8, and the G20, global institutions based on nation states. Well, there's a new model emerging, and about a year ago, I finished a big study, $4 million study on this new model. It was sponsored by all of these companies, and we said the new model is called multi-stakeholder networks. And they've got individual companies, civil society, governments. They're addressing a global problem. They use technology, but they're not controlled by states. So it turns out there are 10 types of these networks. And the one that's most relevant to today, it's called a governance network. There are now things on planet Earth that are governed by an ecosystem, not by states. So the internet itself has standards as part of that governance network. The IETF, the W3 consortium, has operational networks that just do stuff. ICANN delivers domain names. It's got policy networks like the Internet Governance Forum. There are advocacy networks like the Electronic Frontier Foundation. What we need today is a governance network, not big G government, a self-organizing set of governance networks around blockchain technologies. I think in this room, you're creating a platform, but you're also an operational delivery network in that you're not just advocating or talking about it or developing policy, you're actually building stuff. And so that's where you fit into the big picture. Now, we have a lot of work to do. And right now, it's the Wild West out there when it comes to blockchain technologies. But we're starting to get better processes to deal with stuff like block size and so on, but we have a long way to go.